Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CircuitPython Weekly for February 11th, 2019. This is the time of the week when we get together to talk about what we've been doing, what we're going to be doing, to give people some shout outs for doing amazing things, and just to generally sync up with between the people who work on CircuitPython and the community members. We are now a podcast on Spotify. So if you are listening later, you have the option to pick that up and give that a listen. It's adafru.it/Spotify, and that's where you can find that. So that'll give you the option to check it out at a later date. This is recorded, obviously, if we are a podcast. Um, so it's the chat is recorded for YouTube. We do take notes, and there will be timestamps, so you can take a look at the notes and skip around if there's stuff that's more interesting to you, and give it a listen. So I'm Katney. I'm sponsored by Adafruit to work on CircuitPython along with a couple other people in the chat. But we, at this time of the week, are interested in what everybody's up to. This meeting is in 4 parts. At the beginning, we will talk about the state of CircuitPython, which is just covering the general state of the core and the libraries to give you an idea where things are at. After that, we go to Hug Reports, which we do as a round robin. I will start as an example, and then we will go alphabetically down the list through the chat and loop back around. Hug Reports are an opportunity for you to call someone out for doing something great. We put a lot of effort into making sure that we highlight good things, and this is an excellent way and time for us to do that. We then go to status updates, which is sort of a software development thing where everybody gets a chance to talk about what they have been doing over the last week, what they will be doing over the course of the next week. And it's anything you're up to. Tell us about projects you're working on. Tell us about code you're writing, problems you're having, anything like that. And it's also an opportunity for other people to speak up and give you tips and tricks. If there's something that you're running into, someone else may have an answer. And that's the opportunity to find that out. And then lastly, we have what we've lovingly call In the Weeds, which is where we get into more long form discussions about things. And we put that to the end so that if those listening later are not interested in that and just wanted the initial stuff, it's super easy to stop listening at that point. So if you do have any topics for In the Weeds, please type them into the chat at any point in time, and we'll get them added to the notes doc, and then we will talk about them. So you can do that anytime, including while we are talking about In the Weeds. So with that, I will take a time code and we will get started. So the state of CircuitPython and the libraries overall, we had 23 pull requests merged by 13 authors, which is amazing. There are a lot of names in here that I have not seen before. CP Forbes, Kavik, Debro L, B Baraban, I believe are the names that I haven't seen before. That's fantastic. That's great. Like new contributors are a huge part of what we do and are super important. So it's why we like to call them out when we see that is going on. We had 5 reviewers. So thank you to all the reviewers as well. Without the reviews, obviously code would not get merged and we would not be able to continue the process. So thank you so much for that. And we had 18 issues closed by 6 people and 10 opened by 8 people. So overall, we are net down a little bit, which is excellent. And that is most likely because we are currently in the phase of going through 4.0 beta and moving towards 4.0 release candidate stage. And that involves going through a lot of issues and squashing bugs and closing said issues. So I'm not entirely surprised that we are down, because that's something we're actually putting a lot of effort into right now. The goal right now is to move towards release candidate, and we are aiming to do that very soon. So you'll see a lot of issues being closed, potentially issues being opened and then closed if we find more bugs. And hopefully you'll be able to get a release candidate for testing within the next week or so. Um, and then once that's released, please test it. That is the whole point of the release candidate, is to make sure that we have squashed all those bugs and are ready to go into stable. And once the release candidate's been out for a bit, that's when we can go into stable. So with that, I will turn it over to Scott, who will talk about the core.
Awesome. Thank you, Katney. So stats for the core. We had 6 pull requests merged from 5 different authors. From Debro and CP Forbes are new to that list. Maholi added a new board type, which is awesome, and CP Forbes did a number of fixes, which are awesome. We had one reviewer, myself, so we could always use more reviewers on even core code. We have 6 open pull requests, which I think is actually a minimum for us recently, which is good. It would be good to get through some of those other ones as well. Issues wise, we had 8 closed by 2 people and 7 open by 5 people, so we're about net equal. Although the number of open and closed is a little bit higher than it normally is. That puts us at 148 open issues, which you can check the notes doc for the link to all the issues. Downloads wise, our latest unstable is 4.0 beta 2, and we've had 187 total downloads. You can check the notes for a breakdown by board and by language. So check that if you're interested. We also have stats for our latest stable release, which is 3.1.2, and we have had a total of 4,723 total downloads for that. So it's important to note that the stable release also always gets a lot more downloads. So we have to be pretty careful with that, and realize that. So yeah, I think that's where we are. I'll hand it back to you, Katney.
Thanks very much, Scott. Mm-hmm. All right. So now we're going to talk about the libraries. We had 17 pull requests merged, which is great. And 3 new people, the CP Forbes, Kavik, and B Baraban, all new people. And I want to, we have 5 reviewers, and I want to call it Maker Melissa, who's been doing a ton of reviews, which has been great because things have been going a lot faster. And running through pull requests and making sure those get attention is super important. So thank you very much for that. We currently have 15 open pull requests, which is pretty high, but it's great because we've got a lot of new stuff coming in, and we've got a lot of new features being added to current things. So that's been excellent. I've been loving to watch that fly by as everybody's been going through it and testing it and so on. We had 10 issues closed by 5 people and 3 opened by 3 people. So overall, we're net down, leaving us with 67 open issues. A link to each one of those issues is in the notes doc. So if you're interested in taking a look at any of those, issues are a great place to find something that you can work on if you want to get started contributing. The notes doc also has some general statistics and information about the status of the libraries in terms of whether they're set up right, whether they're following our design guidelines, that sort of thing, which is also a great place to look if you're interested in getting started contributing, because some of those are simple as fixing something in a text document or something to that effect. And if you are unsure about how to get started with Git or GitHub, there is a guide, and also we are always available to help. We would love to see you contribute, and so if that's the thing that's stopping you, don't let it stop you, and come and find us, and we can definitely help you with that. There is a library tracking issue on the CircuitPython issues list that covers everything that is going on with the library, so that would be the best place to get started, take a look and see where things are at. And that is the current status of the libraries. So moving on to Hug Reports. Hug Reports are a chance to call someone out for doing something great. If you are hanging around during the week and somebody does something that you think is cool, this is a time to call them out. There's not enough of recognizing people for good things they've done, and we aim to change that. And Hug Reports is one of the ways that we do that. So I will start, and we will go in a round robin through the list. If you don't have audio, feel free to type it into the chat, and I will read it off. And there are also if there are any in the notes that, or any notes rather, that for people who aren't here, I will also read those off in order. So I will get started after I take a time code. All right, so I want to call it Maker Melissa for all the work on the Featherwing library. This was a library that Scott and I started a long time ago with the intention of turning it into a thing, and we never had the time. And Melissa has taken that on, and I'm loving how it's starting to flesh out. It's just designed to make using Featherwing super easy, and there's just all sorts of features being added to that, and that is great. I want to thank Noe and Pedro for help with Illustrator. I had a weird thing that I couldn't figure out, and it took help with that, and Noe and Pedro were able to figure it out for me. I want to thank Phil B for help with eagle defritzing issues. There's a weird bug where newer parts, it just fails to do its thing. It's beyond my understanding, and Phil B has a great grasp on it and was able to figure out commenting out a single line in a very complicated file fixes the whole thing. So thank you for that. I want to thank Kevin for help with bitwise operations. I'm writing my first driver, and definitely needed help understanding how to deal with bits, and that was super helpful. I want to thank Lamore for helping me get started with my first driver and debugging I2C. We've actually added debug stuff to the I2C device in bus device, so now you can enable debug and get I2C data, which is handy. And thank you to Scott for taking time to help me get my driver started, for helping me with reading Salia output, for teaching me how to use register, and for helping me update the register library. So thank you very much for that. And with that, I will hand it over to Melissa.
Hi, I wanted to give a hug report to Carter for going back and forth with me over a couple of the library issues, and another one to all the other CircuitPython librarians for having to deal with all the notifications from that.
Yeah, we love to see it. Thanks so much for doing all of that.
You're welcome.
All right. Next up, I am going to read Sedatious' notes from the notes doc. And that is thanks to Tan Newt, Lady Ada, and Phil, Adafruit, for encouraging me to take on the JPEG code. All right, next up is Scott.
Hello. I have 3.5 today. So first to FNord and Carter, thank you both for helping others on the support forums. It's been awesome. I love getting those emails and then going, and they've already been responded to. So thank you for that. Thanks to Sedatious for the JPEG work and also for your first guide. Congrats on that. And then lastly, as kind of has been the theme already, again, Maker Melissa, thank you for rocking out all of the library reviews. It's very, very, very helpful. So thank you, everybody. That's it.
All right, thanks. I'm going to jump back real quick to SDWNJ, who jumped in with a late hug report, and that's a generic group hug to the CP community, which is fantastic. All right, that gets us to TG Techie. Who has dropped. Okay, we will come back to them if, oh, they're back.
Hmm?
Do you have hug reports?
Yes, I do. Sorry, audio weirdness.
Gotcha, no problem.
Hug report to Tenute for the display work. I'm very excited to get started with it. Hug note to Phil T and Lady Ada from Adafruit for things I don't know if I'm allowed to say yet, probably, but I'll check with them before saying. And group hug to the community.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Next up is Brent.
Hello, hug report to Jerry for fixing the packet length bug in CircuitPython Tiny Laura. The library was untested with sending packets larger than 7 bytes. Most of what I was doing with it was sending temperature and humidity data, which is like 4 bytes if you're doing floats. And now it can send lots of bytes, and I released a new version this morning, so thanks for the quick fix on that.
Excellent. All right, thanks, Brent. Next up is Carter.
Hi, yeah. Hug to Maker Melissa for merging a PR I put in, and mainly for dealing with the ongoing conversation for that Featherwing PR. That looked like something where, getting used to how much you need to respect Pylint versus doing what you know is right. And now we've gotten that sorted out. Now we're kind of on track to actually getting that into something cool and useful. And then another quick one to Scott for merging another PR I put in this week. And just a general group hug, as always. That's it.
All right, thank you very much. All right, C. Grover, are you back this week?
I'm back this week.
Welcome back.
Thanks. And being away for a while, I got to notice the progress of the CircuitPython team and the community on the beta and the libraries. It's just fantastic to see that. And I wanted to throw out a group hug to those folks, and also one to Scott Tanut for the promising terminal monitor work. Future projects are going to glow with radiant purple text, I think. And I really appreciate the support for the VT100 cursor control codes. That's a big plus for many of my future projects.
All right. Thanks very much. Next up is Charles.
Well, this week it's just a plain old group hug to everybody because I guess I could give a hug to Tanu for that for the USB MIDI. I finally tried it out and it seems to work. I used the 4.0 beta on the Neo Trellis, and it seemed to work. Right. I hope I did the right thing. I hope I used the right libraries. I used because somebody quite a while back commented that there weren't that many changes. I mean, from the standpoint of the existing libraries before all the new stuff. I'll talk about it in the updates.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Excellent. Next up is Dan.
Hi. So I was on vacation last week, came back on Friday, and so I don't have a lot to say, but AT Makers Bill Binko, we saw him, we were on vacation near where he lives, and he showed us a great time, which had nothing, we didn't talk technical hardly at all, which was nice. And the details are in the notes about a boat ride and dinner and stuff like that. And then also, everybody knows that when you go on vacation and you see your relatives, you get to do tech support. Right. So I'd like to thank Apple because I had to upgrade a MacBook from an old one to a new one, and it transferred all the data without pain, and then the old MacBook promptly died.
Oh,
so
good timing.
In the nick of time, we got to transfer it in the nick of time. but the software, it's much easier than it used to be and much less manual. That was nice. Okay, that's it.
All right, thanks, Dan. Dave is lurking, and next up is Jerry.
Yeah, it's a shout out to Lady Ada for the ESP32 SPI library. It's working really well and nice to play with. And Carter, just a shout out. You did some great support stuff on Discord in particular, but just in general. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Jerry. And with that, that is Hug Reports. So next up, status updates. Status updates is a chance for everyone to talk about what they have done since the last meeting and discuss what they're going to be doing between now and the next meeting. This can be anything from you were working on a project, or maybe you're new to CircuitPython and this is your first time in this meeting, all the way up to you're working on the core code and this is what you've done. We are excited to hear about what everyone's doing regardless of level, so never feel like you can't give a status update. So I will start. We'll do this as a round robin again, just like we did with Hug Reports. And just take a couple minutes, talk about what you've been doing, what you're going to do, and if you feel like there's something that you need to discuss longer, we can move that to in the weeds. So I will get started after I take a time code. All right. So last week, I created a fritzing object, a couple fritzing objects, which is handy for guides and that sort of thing. I started an update to the e-ink guide because we have 2 new e-inks out, one of which I created the fritzing object for, and we need to update that guide to show the new products. I helped finalize the ADT7410 guide. That's a new one that's coming out. I ported motor kit examples from the original Python motor library. We are moving away from supporting the older Python libraries because now with the Blinker wrapper, CircuitPython library is run on Raspberry Pi. So we wanted to make sure that we had all the examples from the original and moved those over to MotorKit. So we now have all the examples moved over and we can start deprecating that library. The board, so last week I talked about I routed my first circuit board, and last week they came in. So I got those, and within a few hours had a basic driver working, which is also the first time I've ever written a driver. And I wrote that from scratch because we wanted to try using register, and there aren't that many examples to work with. So that was basically from the ground up. So I can read proximity and ambient light data now, which my mind is still kind of blown that from start to finish, this was all me. So that was really, really cool. We updated the register library to work with multi-byte registers because the chip that I have has 2-byte registers, and so the entirety of the register library did not actually function with it, but now it does. I built a breadboard harness for my Salier because I needed to hook that up to get data, and those little grabbers are great, but they're really annoying when you are trying to work around other connections. So that was handy. And I found a bug in register that is related to the update we added. I have a fix, but I have no idea if it's correct. So this week, I'm going to continue and hopefully finish the driver for the current chip. There's another chip that I helped with the sensor footprint, but did not do the board itself. But I have one of those here as well, and I will be writing the driver for that too. I need to verify that the fix I have in register is correct, and if it is, push that fix. I need to finish updating the e-ink guide. There's a getting started with CircuitPython and BLE guide that I started. I need to finish that up this week. I need to find out when Noe and Pedro need a piece of code for a project, because that will need to be done as well. I'm going to be bundling and PyPIing the ESP32 SPI library. There is the OLED feathering. PCB files that are online are out of date, so I will be updating those. And that is probably what will end up taking me all week for sure, if not longer. So that is my status update. Next up, Maker Melissa.
Hi. Okay, so last week I worked on the NeoPixel Featherwing library, and I guess that's I'm waiting on a response from Carter on that. And then I also have the 7-segment display Featherwing thing just about finished, but I'm kind of waiting on the NeoPixel Featherwing thing to go through.
Okay.
And I did a bunch of reviews, and I fixed a couple issues with the HT16K33 library, and I started writing my first learning guide. And next week I'm going to be doing some more library work and some more work on the learning guide, and I'm also going to be moving, so I'm going to be doing a lot of packing, so my time will be a little more limited.
Oh, well, good luck with the move.
Thanks.
And thank you so much for all the library work you've been doing. It's been super great. I get emails for PRs and I get to them and they're already done. It's fantastic. All right. SDW and J, are you actually lurking, or did you want to also give a status update?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you okay.
Okay, good. I was twiddling with my settings, hoping it would work right. Okay, so I've not been up to much for a while. At the beginning of November, I took a job at Micro Center, and I guess I got a little lazy. I haven't been doing too much programming outside of that. But I have a project, not CircuitPython related, although there's something that I might be able to bring into it. I recently bought myself a multimeter, Tenma. It's the Premier Farnell family. And I didn't buy it for this feature, but it came with a cable for USB and for DB9 serial that you can hook up to a computer, but it only has Windows software. So I got the idea of trying to come up with something cross-platform, preferably written in Python. And I did find some software out there that's already been written. I'm not quite sure the state of it. I'm going to start looking into that, kind of see what exists and how well it works with mine, and if I need to tweak that for mine. And then hopefully I'd like to have basically create something similar, very similar to the Windows version that would give all the same functionality. And I did have one idea of where I could possibly bring CircuitPython into that. I was thinking I could possibly make like a mobile data logger that you could hook up without having to have a computer and record, or possibly a lot of the features, a lot of what's on the GUI of the app is kind of just replicating what you already see on the screen of the multimeter. But one of the features it has is giving you like a graph over time. So that's another idea of a CircuitPython device that could maybe give you that graph over time. So this is probably going to be a long-term thing that I'm going to work on and have to like stop and learn something new so I can go further. But yeah, that's what I'm planning on.
Very cool, and congratulations on the job.
Thank you.
All right. Next is Sedatious' report in the notes. Last week, guide published. Woo! JPEG work and exploration, and this week working on JPEG decoding and board assembly if it arrives. All right, next up is Summersoft. Summersoft is in the notes, so I will start reading those. Last week, CircuitPython build tools added the font 5x8.bin to the library bundles for Adafruit FrameBuff, Adabot, Just remained confused at how temperamental Travis is being. Crons have now passed, but it doesn't appear to be related to any changes to Adabot. Shrug. Frequency in, added user configurable capture period attribute, has 1 millisecond to 500 milliseconds range for now, will decide on the minimum and maximum after more testing. Removed EIC latency adjustment and simplified the math, hoping this allows me to approach adjustment from a fresh perspective, getting about 10% fluctuation in readings from a min-max perspective. This is mostly variation in the capture period, not EIC latency, since the period can be up to 900 microseconds beyond the set capture period. Note, I finally did the math on EIC latency, even with a 48 megahertz clock. GCLK EIC latency per event is in the nanosecond range. This week, frequency in, adding event counter overflow handling, increases possible max frequency capability so that 131,070 events are possible, and this will aid longer capture periods. Adabot, work on new line issue for Google Docs transcription. All right, next up is Scott.
Hello. Okay, I think this is mostly what I did last week. It's actually cribbed right from a commit message, so if you see it later, don't be surprised. But I spent last week doing a variety of display I/O improvements, and I'm just going to kind of list them off. So first, I introduced built-in font and glyph, so that adds the ability for now that the Express boards have built-in fonts, this will allow you to use them for other stuff as well, which is convenient because it doesn't take any more memory, and it's convenient because it's consistent with the terminal as well. So that's in there. I'm removing load row from bitmap in favor of using a subscription, which is like the square bracket access. The index can either be an XY tuple, so you could do X comma Y in brackets, or you could just do an overall index, and then it will mod that by the width of the row. I added width and height properties to the bitmap class, which matches what happened, which somebody else did for on-disk bitmap. I think that was Sedatious. I added insert and subscription access to group. So this makes it easier to tweak things that are in the middle of a group. I also added the index parameter to pop, so you can remove any index on our group as well. For the terminal class, it no longer takes the Unicode character stuff itself. It takes a built-in font, basically to do the mapping between code point and glyph. And then two more, I fixed terminal's handling of the bracket number D VT100 command, which is used by MicroPython for up arrowing and doing the history stuff. So it's the way that it deletes the bulk of the line.
Mm-hmm.
So I fixed that. And I also added X and Y positions to group, so you can move group as a whole. We had a hack in display text where we would just kind of copy it down into all of the children, which we don't need to do. So that is coming. It's a lot of random stuff, so I need to just go in and test it all to make sure that do some basic testing, make sure it all works. And then I also need to make sure that the libraries on top work. So display text and bitmap font in particular. So that's what I'm doing this week. If I get through that, I'm going to be bug hunting for 4.0 because I want to be pretty aggressive and get that done in the next couple weeks before I'm out for a week. So that's what I'm up to.
All right. Thanks very much.
Mm-hmm.
TG Techie, what is your status update?
So I have 2, maybe 3 pieces. For a long time, I've been working on GUI, and it's been 14 days since I started a rewrite, and I think I'm done. 5 minutes ago, literally, I just fixed a white space breaking of font, which is while we were doing this, which is, and I'm going to upload, if it's okay, to the chat, a video of the GUI working.
Yeah, go for it.
Is that okay? Probably just a link. And this GUI, well, the last one took like 5 files and like a lot of code. This one all happens in main, and you just pass it the button presses or pointer locations and clicks that you want to do, and it runs. I have it running on a 77355 or a touchscreen, which is so surreal to go from nothing to a touchscreen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm going to try to compile and release within the next couple of days.
Very cool.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, I believe, is Brent.
Hello. Last week I did 2 CircuitPython-ish guides. I did one where you can make your own temperature network, like your own network. You control everything, which is kind of cool. It's with LoRa and Adafruit IO and Adafruit IO Python running on a Raspberry Pi, which also runs CircuitPython. Released an Adafruit IO monthly, which covered a few CircuitPython projects. I'm starting to see a few more come through, which is really cool. Cool to integrate both of them. This week I'm working on an ADT 7410 guide for CircuitPython and Adafruit IO, so connecting the new temperature sensor that we had in the cart last week. I think it's like $6. It's a really good replacement for a DHT if you want to do temperature sensing, super high accuracy. And also doing a new Cricut Python guide this week with Adafruit IO integration for the Raspberry Pi running both the Python client and then Blinka. And then I'm also talking about CircuitPython at Firmware Meetup in 2 weeks in New York City, and hopefully it'll be fun.
Very cool. Yeah, I hope that goes well. All right. Next up is Carter.
Yes, a couple of things. Carved out some time to break away from the forums and actually get back to doing some CircuitPython stuff, which was fun for a change. One went real quick, a lot quicker than I thought, was to add or move the const I had for the ADS 1x15, the ADC drivers, like the mode const for user space for them to change things like the mode and the rate and stuff like that. I thought that was going to be a lot more work. Once I started looking into it, I realized there was really only one knob that needed something defined. So it ended up being just like a couple lines. So that went real fast. And then the other one was to add threshold functionality to the light sensor, the TSL2561, so that you can set like high-low thresholds and have it throw the interrupt pin when it exceeds those. And that one I thought would have some more discussion, but Scott came along and just merged it right on in. So done and done. And that's it.
All right. Thanks for getting that stuff added. Okay, next up, C. Grover.
Yeah, I stayed in the recording studio for an extra week, so I haven't done a lot of circuit Pythoning. But I broke free from that just in time for our Snowmageddon here.
Oh.
Lot of shoveling and driving gymnastics. But I had time to carve out some time during the height of the storm when I was stuck inside to start coding. And, there's a first time for everything. So I encountered a few conceptual roadblocks. They're in my head somewhere, so I'm trying to blast those out of the way. But I've been able to make some steady progress on that, and I'm just taking small bites or small shovelfuls, I guess, given the storm we have here. Anyway, I'm enjoying that, and I'm going to be ready to ask for some help here pretty soon. But I'm stubborn enough; I got to learn this for myself, or it won't stick in there.
You cut out. What did you start coding?
I started coding an instance method and turning it into a library. I've got a project coming up that uses some code that I wrote that JP used in one of his projects, and I wanted to turn it into hardware, but I also wanted to create a library out of it so it's more general purpose, and so you can create multiple instances of it.
Okay.
And that's my next project. I've got some PCB designs around that library that I'm going to put together, and It's a Eurorack control voltage, scaling, and noise reducing translator module. It'll all be written in CircuitPython, of course, and it'll have my new fully functional library in it.
Very cool.
We hope.
All right. Thanks very much. Next up is Charles.
Well, I have been experimenting with the Neo Trellis for purposes of doing a sort of an auto harp type thing, and I've got it partially working. So I've got the major and minor chords working now. I got to work on some other stuff.
Nice.
I've got to make sure it goes out clean. When I actually do the strumming, it has to, ripple through each chord. So that's the next part of the project. I hope it works well. I hope I can get it working quickly. Because I do have a model in that. I do have a model of it, of how to do it from the guys who made the air harp. They've gone out of business, which is really too bad, but I talked to them about maybe open sourcing the code for the auto harp, the air harp, so that, I hope they do that. That's as far as I've gotten. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks, Charles. All right, next up is Dan.
Hi. So as I mentioned, I was on vacation, so I kept up with my email on vacation, but otherwise didn't do any other work. And now our plan is to get 4.0 out the door. I'm going to work on some of the remaining bugs. There's a UART bug, which I'll be working on immediately first. And then as time permits, I'll start working on other BLE things, probably after 4.0 comes out, after the release candidate. Maybe BLE HID, maybe BLE Central, not clear. But whatever seems to be gives us the biggest bang for the buck. Okay.
Sounds good. Thanks, Dan. Glad you had a great vacation. All right. Next up is Jerry.
Yeah, I actually took some time last week to play with the particle mesh boards. It wasn't CircuitPython, but it was a lot of fun. So it's the same board's been running CircuitPython on some of the argons and xenons, but their native environment is pretty cool, and learning some good things with that. And then there was a question came up on Discord last week. Somebody brought up about had tried to push some extra bytes out on the Tiny LoRa library, and was really surprised when they said it didn't work. So dug into that a little bit and found luckily it wasn't too hard to find. So that was able to fix that quickly. And now we can send nice big packets, and they work. And yeah, they played a lot with the BLE on the Cricket that Dan made working. Just continued working with that, and it's going well. Looking forward to doing more with that. And now just started playing with the this new ESP32 SPI library, and it's working really well. And slowly converting all my boards over to use it. So that's it. Next week, more of the same.
Sounds great. Thanks for testing everything.
Yeah.
All right. And that sums up Hug Reports. Sums up status updates. Thank you, everybody, for letting us know what you're up to. So lastly, we have In the Weeds. I haven't seen anybody post any topics. So I don't know if anyone has anything they didn't post. Ooh, somebody does. That would be Scott.
I was just thinking about, I don't think there are any translators in the meeting right now, but I know that some of them listen to this after the fact, and maybe they listen to the end. But in case they do, and I'll follow up on the issues as well, but if we're trying to get, I think we want to be pretty aggressive and get 4.0 out the door in like 2 weeks. So if you are a translator, we're going to minimize the string churn in the next 2 weeks. And so if there's any last details on translations, please do that in the next 2 weeks. But as always, we can follow up with a 401, a 402 to fix translations as well. But for those folks in particular, I think kind of need a heads up to say we're going to get it out soon. So reach out to me if you have questions. But I think we're going to try to get 4.0 out the door. We've got a product. I'm going on vacation for a week, and we've got a product launch that we're manufacturing around that time too. So we kind of want to wrap it all up so that we can ship those new things with 4.0, which would be awesome.
Yeah, sounds great. All right, thanks.
So that I think that's all for me.
Okay, thanks for letting me know.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else got anything?
Nope.
SDWNJ is typing.
Kattni, while we're waiting, is your new board for the was it the 4010 the new?
It's the 4040.
Yeah. So there is one out there now, isn't there? Or is it different? Is it a different model?
Different model.
Ah, okay. I just saw that name. All right. So
yeah, it's the 4010 is already out.
So this is the 4040. All right, I missed that. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, I don't see anybody else with any kind of in the weeds stuff, so let's go ahead and wrap it up. This has been the CircuitPython Weekly for February 11th, 2019. We will post this to YouTube, so thank you to everyone who participated. Thank you to everyone who's watching later. We appreciate everyone being a part of this, and thanks very much.